Awesome. I think we're going here, guys. What is up? Welcome back to the GeekWave. And in this video, we are taking a look at some of just the older stuff in the MCU that I would like to change. I didn't know how else to do this video because I am a fan of the MCU. I really am. I've always liked that stuff, but I thought we would take some time here just talking about, as a fan of this, what it was I would change, if there's something I would like to see differently, or if there are certain things that I think should have been done differently. I don't know. I'm starting to ramble already. We haven't even started. I'm using a new webcam, so I'm not sure how the quality of this is going to look. Hope it looks really nice and just better than the one that's used on my MacBook. So if it looks better, please let me know and let me know how the audio's sounding. I think everything should be hooked up properly, so I'm very curious to see how it's going to turn out and how it's going to look. So we got a couple of housewarming things to talk about before we jump into this, and one of those being I've done reviews of every episode of Stargirl, and I love the show. I'm really liking it. Sometime, I want to say maybe Wednesday or Thursday, I'm going to be doing a live stream talking about Doom Patrol Season 2 and Stargirl Season 1, and maybe just give my thoughts overall about the DC Universe app and how I think about it, what I feels doing right, what I think it's doing wrong, and why I think it's going to be morphed into HBO Max, because come on, it's going to be morphed into HBO Max. Like, we pretty much know that for a fact. And if I keep looking down at the monitors, because I'm looking at myself and I got the webcam up here, so if you guys notice that, I'm sorry. So yeah, I got my last review of Stargirl coming out hopefully tomorrow when the show ends. I got a review of Perry Mason coming out tomorrow too. So look forward to those coming from this channel. As always, just more comic book stuff. I think we got a death metal coming out this week. A lot of great stuff there. So stay tuned for that stuff. I'm very excited. And when the review of Stargirls are done, I am doing reviews of Muppets Now. So if you guys are watching Muppets Now, I'm talking about every episode every week. I think it's 6 episodes. And so far, 2 of them have come out. They're okay. I think some people are going to like them. Some people might not. I'm just very curious to see how that's going to be. So we'll jump into the news right now. Yeah, we're going to jump into the news. And we got a few topics, actually. There's a couple of things on here I actually pulled off my news list just because I was like, do we really need to talk about these? I don't think we do. So I decided we're not going to talk about them. But I pulled a couple that I really liked, and I thought they'd be interesting conversation pieces for the time being. So we'll talk about those right now before we jump into our main topic. And we're going to start with Kevin Smith has kind of stated he's going to be working on an animated Green Hornet series, which I'm like, that's cool. But does anybody want a Green Hornet series? Like, the character was popular for a moment there. He did have a movie, but I'm like, is anybody like clamoring or wanting to watch this kind of show? I think it could be cool if you take it, I guess, more into the direction of like this old school detective show where it's kind of like this noir feeling. It's got the soft blues music. Everyone's talking in this like deep poetic voice. That could be a little interesting to see, and that might be a little more compelling for some people. But overall, I think we got like a huge slew of animation as it is, and I don't know if Green Hornet's going to fit into the crop we have right now, because I could see this going 2 ways. It could be a lot like Archer in terms of like the animation style and how it looks there, or it could be like Star Trek Lower Decks. And I hope it's not like Star Trek Lower Decks, and I could kind of see it going that way too, but Archer would be a better way too. I mean, Kevin Smith's worked on the property before, so he probably has an understanding of who these characters are supposed to be and how they are, so I'd love to see his take on that again, but I don't think anyone wants this, right? I mean, what? They released another Green Hornet book from Scott Lobdell. Did anybody buy that? I'm very curious to find out if anybody bought that, because I don't think they did. I know I didn't, and I was gonna buy it, but Scott Lobdell, I'm not supporting that guy. I made really cruel notes here about what I'm talking about, like, because I had them on my phone, but I'm also trying to monitor this on my phone just so I get a sense of what's going on there. So our next piece of news is, this one really hurt, actually. I was like, I can't believe this happened, because this was probably in like a top 3 book at Marvel for me right now. So Ed Brisson, I think last week, announced on his Twitter that his Ghost Rider book was going to end with issue 7, and that was the last issue to come out. Oh man, that really sucks. First off, Ed Brisson's a fantastic writer. I'm amazed he hasn't got like a bigger project going on at the moment at Marvel. And that Ghost Rider book was so good, guys. Like, if you weren't reading it, it was everything that these characters needed, like a reinvention of them. Johnny was still the king of hell for some reason. I'm not sure why we were still on that plot hole, but he was. And then Mephisto was still doing some stuff with the Tower Inferno, or the Hotel Inferno, I mean. Like, there was some really cool stuff in there. And even Danny Ketch had some great moments. We made him the spirit of corruption. This was like one of the best books happening at Marvel, and I'm really upset they canceled it. And I do think the numbers were there too. I 100% think the numbers were there because they were marketing the hell out of this book. I have a long box that's based off that artwork with that logo. Like, they were really marketing this, and I'm surprised they decided to cancel it. I really am, because I think it was really well done. And it wasn't even the first cancellation at Marvel. I think they said Black Cat was going on hiatus. That means it's just going to come back for a King in Black tie-in. Then Amazing Mary Jane was canceled, another book that I kind of liked, and I'm surprised they canceled it. And Mark Waid's Doctor Strange, which, not a surprise there. I'm not sure if a lot of people are liking Waid's Doctor Strange, but it just seems really weird that those are the titles they've canceled. Like, a lot of like the more, not D-list, but just like the side characters that I think a lot of people have connections to, and they're the ones that are being canceled. That seems really surprising to me. I don't know. That's just what I feel. And some more news here. Mulan is going to be moving to Disney Plus come September, but you have to pay $30. I think this is a really smart decision. I mean, I love going to the theater and having that experience. Who doesn't? It's like a big part of my enjoyment of watching things. But in the times we live in, it's kind of hard to have those moments and kind of hard to have those feelings. So going to Disney Plus, something I'm pretty sure a lot of us already have, paying $30 to see it early, I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see maybe some theaters, like some small town theaters, maybe have like an exclusive screening of it where they'll pay like the $30 to rent it and put it on their screen, and you can bring your kids $5 a ticket to watch. I think that could be really cool to see. But I don't know, like this, I think this could be a sign of the times, and this could be the future going forward for a bunch of companies. They should do it with Black Widow. I really think they should do it with Black Widow. Like, a lot of people are going to pay money to see Black Widow as it is, and I think dropping it now on a streaming service is a really good idea, a smart way to make some money there. So I like that a lot. I hope they do that, but they're probably not, because, theaters need movies to watch, and we're going to see Tenet whenever Tenet comes out, which will probably be in next year. I don't know. I can't imagine like a lot of movies coming out this year. I know we've pushed them back a lot, but how much more can they do it? Like, I don't know when we're going to see Tenet. I don't know. I really don't know, and I hope we get it soon, but I don't want to push it if we're not ready as a society. So yeah, Mulan looks cool. I'll watch it probably, so that's exciting, but just do it with Black Widow. And I don't know. I'm amazed they're doing this one for $30, but like Artemis Fowl sucks, so we're not going to have people pay for Artemis Fowl. That's confidence in a Mulan property, so I think that's really cool too. What else we got here? We have Ren and Stimpy making a return to Comedy Central. Are you guys excited for this? Because I am sure not. I do not like Ren and Stimpy. I don't think they're that interesting of characters or that compelling to see in any regards of the word. And I know that they said that the creator will not be getting any royalties or payment from making this. That being said, too, you still probably shouldn't have made it. Like, do we really need to see a property made by a guy that was a sexual harasser and a sexual abuser come back into the light just because people have nostalgia for it? I mean, I wasn't around in the era of Ren and Stimpy, so I don't know if that's like a big thing that people love. But to me, it's like, I'd rather see a different property get brought back or a different kind of show come back. I know Animaniacs is coming back. That's one I'm very excited for. That's coming to Hulu, I think, in November. I can't remember, but Ren and Stimpy, it's just loud and annoying. It's like, I don't think in the times we live in now, we really need a Ren and Stimpy cartoon to return. So I don't know, like, it doesn't seem that interesting or compelling, and I don't want to see it. And I'm glad that the original creator, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give him any more attention than he needs, but I'm glad that the original creator is not getting any money off of this. I think that is at least a positive to come out of a show that I don't want to see. So we also got news here. We got a new director for Captain Marvel 2. We got Nia DaCosta, and I'm not very familiar with her work. I know she is the director on the newest Candyman that was supposed to be coming out, but now it's been postponed. That's cool. I'm very excited to see what that Candyman movie is going to look like. Very interesting stuff. We got Black Manta in there, if I'm not mistaken. I think he did that. And didn't he film that before he blew up and became the next big star? So that's pretty interesting to see, too. I'm very excited for this. And I wasn't a big fan of the first Captain Marvel movie. I just wasn't like it wasn't for me. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. Like there's some good moments, there's some stuff in there. I'm like, "Ooh, is that really what we're doing here?" But getting a new director on board, I think that's a good idea. We'll have one clear vision this time because I'm sure she's going to speak her mind and say what she wants to see. I'm very excited for that. So that's really cool. I'm very glad we're getting a new director on Captain Marvel too, and that's really exciting. I'm amazed that Brie Larson didn't say she directed because she's a director now too. Remember what was her Netflix movie, Unicorn Rainbow or Unicorn Store? Yeah, Unicorn Store, or was it Rainbow Store? That one where you know what I mean, and she directed. So I'm amazed she didn't say like, "Yeah, I'll direct this. I know how to make myself look good." So I mean, that's fine. I like that we got a new director. I think that's pretty exciting stuff. We got one more piece of news here that I'm very excited to talk about because this was a really cool tease and really cool announcement. I definitely think we're going to learn more about it at the DC Fandom event, but Rocksteady has announced a Suicide Squad game coming soon. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like or how that's going to be, but that's really cool. I've been thinking Suicide Squad make a great game for a long time. I mean, there's a lot of cool things you can do. You can play with a bunch of different characters on different levels. You get different power ups, and you make a really cool story out of that. They kind of teased that there is like a Superman-esque character on the poster they released. I'm not sure if that was Superman. It looked like Superman, but I heard somewhere. I'm not going to quote anybody on this. I heard somewhere that it could be Bizarro. I think that'd be kind of cool. I'd love to see Bizarro in this. I'm a big fan of that character. And I guess having Superman in a Suicide Squad game just makes me think we're not getting a Superman game anytime soon. But Bizarro, yeah, I could see it. That's how you could kind of maybe tease an upcoming Superman video game. So that could be kind of exciting. And I like it. I don't own a console. Maybe I'll get a console. I was actually just watching some gameplay for the new Avengers game that I was very adamant on. Like, I don't want to see this and I don't care about it. But watching that gameplay, I'm like, this looks really cool. And I'm so excited for it. I like seeing Kamala Khan as a lead. So maybe now, if we get this Suicide Squad game announcement like fully at the Fandom event, I will maybe want to buy a console and maybe I will stream. I don't know. I'm not much for like streaming games. I'm not a Twitch guy. I like doing some of these live events here just because you get a feel for the people and you can build up an audience in a different way. But I'm not like a video game guy who's going to stream everything he does just because that's the only way he can, I don't know, get views. I like talking like this, just having a discussion instead of actually doing an activity. So we'll see what happens there. But if this game looks good, maybe I will pick up a console. What do you guys think? I'm a PlayStation guy. I've always been a PlayStation guy. But that's all the news we have. A lot of great stuff coming out in this news, and I'm very excited to talk about our main topic. For those of you just joining us, we are talking about changes I would like to see made to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or my opinions. If you disagree with them, I completely understand. Like, I'm just rapping and talking my ass off here, so it doesn't matter. But I want to start by saying this too. I am a fan of these movies. Like, I really enjoy them. I love watching them. Just seeing my favorite characters or a character I enjoy on the screen and having references to other stuff in a really cool way that a lot of people can enjoy. I think that's really cool. And I think these movies really opened up for people to have these kind of discussions where we can talk about this stuff online and build a community around it and just have a good time talking about the things we've loved for such a long time. And I think all that comes from the MCU, how big it became and how interesting people just fled to it and flocked to it and just had a great time watching it and enjoying it. So that's kind of why I'm like, I think we should talk about the MCU. I haven't really talked about the MCU a lot on my channel, which is kind of surprising because, I mean, it's pretty much a comic book channel. You'd have to talk about the MCU if you want to keep it up, right? I've done some casting videos for the MCU. I've ranked all the movies in my favorite order. Oh, off the top of my head, I think my top three were Iron Man at number one, like the first Iron Man at number one. Number two was Avengers Age of Ultron. And number three was Captain America, the First Avenger. Those are my three favorite MCU movies. And I don't really hate a lot of them. There's a couple that I really dislike. And I guess I'll say that right now. I hate Endgame. I hate Far From Home. I hate Homecoming. And I don't really like Thor the Dark World. Those are the only movies that I really hate. But it is what it is. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about some stuff that I would like to see changed in the MCU. And we're going to start with this one. It is the thumbnail for this entire video. It is, I wish they didn't kill off Quicksilver. Like, you saw it there. Age of Ultron was one of my favorite movies in the MCU. And the way it introduced Wanda and Pietro and Vision all at the same time, I thought that was really impressive and something that not a lot of other franchises could do. I want to take Joss Whedon off the table here. I don't really want to get into him or talk about anything involving him because that's a whole other video we could probably do at some point. I'm not a huge fan of Joss Whedon, but Age of Ultron was just such a fun, fascinating movie to me. The moment they killed off Pietro, I was really upset just because that character always just he stuck with me. I don't know why, because I've never been like a huge fan of people like Thor or Iron Man or Black Widow. I mean, I like the Hulk. The Hulk was like my childhood one. He's the one I liked for a long time. But him in the MCU, we're gonna get to it here in a bit with the Hulk, so we'll come back to that. But the way they introduced Pietro and Quicksilver, that character was just so like himself in an updated modern setting. He was arrogant, he was cocky, he was making jokes at everyone's expense, just having a good time. But he was also still really in control of himself and he cared deeply for his sister. And that was a really cool arc to see with him. And we got that all in the one movie. And then we're just like, oh, we have to do something else with Hawkeye here. So we're going to have to kill off Quicksilver just to give Hawkeye a little more motive to continue. I hate it. I don't think you needed to do that. There was nothing about that that needed to be done. And it kind of ruined it for me. And I know people are saying, oh, he's probably going to come back in WandaVision. And I hope he does. But at the same time, could you imagine? Just imagine, Age of Ultron comes out. The next couple of movies that we have where Quicksilver could have been in them, Civil War, that would have been really cool. Maybe he'd go against Wanda. Maybe he'd fight the Vision there. He'd go against Clint. That could be a very interesting angle. He'd probably side with Tony. I do think he would side with Tony, actually. Infinity War would be really cool to see with him in it. That could be cool. He could probably have a cool dynamic with Peter and like Peter Parker. That could be a really fun, interesting thing we wouldn't get to see. And I feel like his presence just could have been a different kind of energy we haven't seen from the MCU. Because up until this point, they've all been great people and they've all had like their little quips and jokes they make. But Pietro could just be like really digging into you in a really negative light, just like, I really don't like you, so I'm going to harass you and make you angry for a different reason than just making a quippy joke. I'm going to literally just be like, you're Captain America, that's it? Like, why are you fighting these people? That's stupid. It's because your friend? Like, come on, man. Don't be like this. So I think there could be something really cool there. And having that emotional moment, maybe him dying in Infinity War would have been better for me. But like I said, nobody could have predicted what would happen if Joss Whedon making that movie. So killing him off, I get. I just wish he stayed there longer because I really like that character and enjoy seeing him on screen. He's just so interesting and unique. So I had to put him on. I had to put that on here just because I really liked him a lot. And here's another thing I have some issues with. Actually, this is probably one of my biggest problems with Avengers Endgame, and that is the relationship of Steve and Peggy. I think in the first Avenger, okay, the first Captain America movie, they are a good kind of dynamic. They are the star-crossed lovers who can never fully be together. You know, they are she's all-powering and encompassing this beautiful woman who is in control of every situation. Steve is this young, brash guy who wants to be this hero, but he can't really do it. And when they finally come together and you see their genuine connection for everything happening in this war and for all the soldiers they've lost and all the people in their lives that they couldn't save, there's a really cool connection there. Then you jump to Winter Soldier. Okay? Winter Soldier is where Steve has to learn to let go. He even gets permission from Peggy, like, it's okay, you can move on. Like, you're fine to grow up and do these things now. It's a different world. You're a different man. It's okay. We've literally dedicated, what, an entire 2-season show of Peggy Carter to her moving past Steve? We really did that. We did that in a show, didn't we? And we already confirmed that she like marries one of the other soldiers. So why do we have to go back in Endgame and have Steve go back to Peggy? I mean, we literally spent I know there's people are like, he finally learned to care for himself and be selfish like Stark always did. That's bullshit. First off, Stark was never selfish. He learned that at the end of the first Iron Man movie. Like, we have done how many movies of Captain America in them, and in all of those movies, he's learned to move past Peggy and find himself. So going back at the end of Endgame, it's a terrible ending for that character. First off, what happened to her husband? Like, we know that she had a husband. So what happened to him? Did they just like really screw up the timeline that bad because they loved each other so much. They had one movie together, and then the other movie was like, you can let me go, Steve. Like, you can move on from your past and your history with me. And they really didn't even have a history. Did they even kiss in the 40s? I can't even remember if they did. So having him go back, I thought it was really ridiculous. And it really bothered me for that reason, especially because in the same movie where Peggy dies, right? In the same movie where Peggy dies, Civil War, Steve kisses Sharon. You could say what you want about that. Is that literally his niece at that point? What's going on there? Say whatever you want about that. I don't care. Like, it's its own thing. But honestly, he should have been with Peggy. I mean, he should have been with Sharon. I was just looking at a picture of Peggy here. He should have been with Sharon. You didn't even have to, like, I don't know. It's weird because they really wanted to push that Sharon was going to be the love interest, but then they really just pulled it under the rug, and she wasn't even in Endgame, which I thought was really weird that she wasn't in there. Their kiss was weird at times just because it came out of nowhere, but you're like, you kind of set it up that he had a little bit of attraction to her in Winter Soldier, right? He's like, hey, well, maybe for the price of a cup of coffee, you could, steam my laundry at your place or something. And that was really cool. You just see him. He's finally like, I can move past the part of me that's stuck in the 40s and find myself in this new world. And having Sharon do that, I think that was really cool. I still think, in terms of the movies, he should have been with Natasha. Because that relationship, those two have a really great chemistry, really great relationship. They should have been together. I don't know why they decided not to do that, because that angle could have been really cool to see if they just stayed together or were a little bit more intimate at times. But why have him go back to Peggy? What's the point? Like, you already established he's moving on. It's not like a selfish thing. It's just like, oh, we've never really progressed the character to the point where he can move on from his past, so we have to go back and do that. But you did progress him, so going back actually de-progresses him. What's the opposite of progression? Regression. So why? It really upsets me. It's something that really bothers me, because that romance, it shouldn't really matter. It doesn't matter in the comic books. We haven't really focused on that in the comic books. He's been with Sharon in the comics for a few times there. So why can't we focus on that? I don't know, but we should. And let's talk about this next piece here. This one's kind of a little different from the other two. This is kind of encompassing the whole trilogy of Thor movies. And what it is I really like the first Thor movie. It's not my favorite. I'll tell you guys that right now. It's not my favorite Thor movie. But what I think that movie did better than the rest of them was really show you what Asgard was. It's this mythological place. It is this own being, this own plane of existence that's so intense and gritty. And there's some real pristine to it as well. The rest of the movies, like The Dark World and Ragnarok, they don't show you that part of Asgard. And I think in Ragnarok you get it a little bit. But what I really mean about this is, I wish Thor was a little more like over the top Shakespearean, old dialogue, old dialect, just everyone talking dramatically for this weird like cinema experience where it's like this old school movie. It feels like a Ben-Hur. Everyone's talking so dramatic and empowering, and it's just weird and just really Shakespearean. And I mean, that old dialogue, I really miss that for Thor, because come on, every writer in the comics still writes Thor with that old talking dialect. Even the cartoons do it. I look back when this is actually the reason I put this one on my list. I look back to the cartoon Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes, which is my favorite Avengers cartoon, arguably my favorite superhero cartoon ever. The way that they present Asgard in this is literally, it's a place of the gods. It's an Olympus style thing. You go to this land, everything's so big and beautiful and intense, and everyone's talking in these weird, slow, old school ways, and it's just so deep and enriching, and there's such a big history about it. And we don't really dive into that side of things in the MCU, which I think is a tragedy, because if you really wanted to differentiate it from something like Guardians of the Galaxy, then you should have leaned more into like the old school god side of things, where everybody's so big and powerful and they're talking with like thee and thy and Odith and that kind of stuff. That would have been really cool to see. Now, I understand for a modern audience, it might not work because they don't really like things they can't understand. But Thor Ragnarok, which I don't hate Thor Ragnarok. I want to say that. I don't hate Thor Ragnarok. But one of my biggest problems of Thor Ragnarok was Too many jokes. They did all land though, but I just thought there's too many jokes, and like it's just Guardians light with a little less interesting humor. Guardians, Guardians isn't on my list at all. Actually, some of the characters are for a different thing we'll talk about, but the movies are not on my list. I love the Guardians movies because they give all of their characters a moment to shine in these different areas, and the humor works for that. They really just built up because the humor and the songs in Guardians are a part of the movie. They're not really like that in Thor Ragnarok, are they? They're jokes and they are funny, but they're not part of the movie itself. They kind of take you out at times. They're just some really simple jokes that you're like, I get what they're going for here, and I like it. But the thing I really enjoy about the first Thor movie is you're just like, wow, this is a big sweeping place. Asgard is a world unto itself. There's really nothing like it in existence. It's so big and grand, and everything is just so over the top. It's like watching a production of an old Shakespeare play put in front of you with the power struggle of the brothers and the father and all that stuff and the warring realms. We don't see that in any other thing, really. And I really miss that because I think Thor 1 was very underrated just in terms of what it did for that character. If they stayed true to that character through all the movies, I know Chris Hemsworth hated it or he didn't want to do it later on, but that Thor, I think, would have been a lot cooler to see than the one we see now, because then he'll always be this grandiose figure that's really interesting and different from just making him somebody like Tony or Star-Lord or a combination of those characters. And I think that could have been something that a lot of people would have liked. I don't know. That's just my opinion. If you guys disagree with me, I get it. Like, it was good what they did to the character because they updated him and they made him relevant again for an audience that didn't want him. But I wish we just stuck to the grandiose Shakespearean North talking shit because that was a lot more interesting in my opinion. And I'm kind of hoping we go back to that in Love and Thunder, but I'm pretty sure we're not because that's a terrible title. And we're going to do some more stuff with Meek and Korg and Jane Foster. So it's only going to go further down the rabbit hole of wanting to be Guardians, but not actually being Guardians. Now, here's one I want to talk about that I'm probably going to do my own video on. And that video is going to be talking about like my favorite moments in the Spider-Man movies. But I really needed to bring this up. If we're talking about making changes to the MCU, here's a change I'd love to see made that I know will never happen because we can't go back and fix it. I wish Peter Parker didn't rely so much on Tony for everything he's done and everything he's built. Because I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on here or not, but one of the core themes of Peter Parker is that he is this struggling guy who's doing everything for himself and building himself up in this bigger way. He is the best hero in existence. And having him get his suit and technology and all these resources from Tony Stark take away a part of Peter that I think is really relatable to a lot of people. And that is the doing things for yourself, the struggle to do right and wrong, when all that is just thrown at you. Like, here's your suit. It's got an instant kill mode. It's got like a parachute. You'll be fine. Do whatever you want. It takes away a core element of Peter's character. And I really wish that wasn't the case, but I know why they did it. They really wanted to build up the Peter and Tony relationship, but that relationship sucks. I don't care what anybody says. That relationship is stupid and it should never have been in the movies just because Peter's idols shouldn't be the asshole. And I know they're trying not to make Tony the asshole in this, but Peter's idols should be somebody like Reed Richards and his Uncle Ben. And Reed Richards is more of an asshole, but Reed Richards is just somebody like a little more, I guess, understanding of the simpler times because he wasn't a billionaire always, and I think that's a little bit of an important thing that gets lost in translation when it comes to the MCU Peter. And I don't know, like something about that was just really off to me. So it's just weird. And now he's like, okay, he's talking to Tony. He's got the suit. Tony made him the suit. Tony made him the Iron Spider suit. All this has come from Tony. And Far From Home, he uses the tech Tony gives him to build a suit. I don't want to see my Peter Parker relying so much on Tony Stark. Is that such a bad thing? Now that Tony's dead, I know we're going to figure out something else happening there, but come on. Like, come on, honestly. He's going to get it. Like, he's going to get it. Everything he's got is from Tony Stark, so it's not that impressive anymore. And, like I said, we'll probably be doing a full-on video talking about Spider-Man movies and what I'd like to see. I got a couple of guests I would like to get on talking about that just because it's such a important character, and I think a lot of people want to experience that character. And if you'll just hang on a sec, my cat is trying to get out of the room here. And now we just walked back in. So that didn't matter. We'll jump into this other part of the video here, and we are going to be talking about characters I'd like to see changed. Because these were all just kind of like things to characters I'd like to see changed. Like, we don't need this romance, we don't need this character killed off and all that stuff. But here we're just like, okay, here are some things with the characters I'd like to see changed, because I'm not saying I know better than the creators, but I just think we could see some better stuff from these characters. And the first one is the Hulk. And I have a lot of thoughts on the Hulk, and we could probably do a video just talking about the Hulk too, but we don't really ever see him rage out that much except for the first two Avengers movies. And I know that's where he was supposed to shine and be this big character, but I'll say it here, I don't like Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner. I think he doesn't understand like the manic, frantic energy that should be portrayed in a Bruce Banner. There should always just be like he should always constantly be looking over his shoulder when it comes to everything he does. Like, Bruce Banner is always on the run. He's always afraid of what's coming next. And you don't really get that from Mark Ruffalo. You get the sense like he's a cool science guy. He's a little geeky, you know? Natasha kind of likes him. And then when it comes to the Hulk, it's just like, we're only going to see him rage out a little bit in Age of Ultron. He loses control and they take him down with the Hulk Buster. It's a cool scene, but not a lot of Hulk going on there. In the first Avengers movie, it's that thing again too. We're only seeing him rage out a little bit, but he's always going to be in control and not be that cool. He makes quips too. Why do all of our characters have to make quips? He goes like puny god when he's taking down Thor. I mean Loki. Like, you don't need to do that with Hulk. And it's hard to say, because one of the best runs of Hulk ever is the current run of Immortal Hulk. And I that's like the one Hulk run where I'm like, this is really good and something that's really cool with the character that I'm surprised it took them this long to do. And I want to say we could do that in the MCU, but I don't know how you could do that to make the Hulk different than he's always been portrayed there. It'd be interesting, right? Because imagine them putting the Green Door theory and all that stuff into the MCU. Like, that would be really cool to see. I'd be very curious by that and excited by it, but we're not going to get that, because then we cut to like Infinity War / Endgame, and he is now Smart Hulk, Professor Hulk, the worst Hulk. Like, he's just become a giant meme. Everyone's memed that character so much, and it hasn't become funny or interesting. And you could do something cool with a Smart Hulk. You really could. You could play up the angle that he hates Banner, or he doesn't like Banner, and he just like, I don't need Banner to be smart. I can be smart on my own. I'm capable of doing that on my own. Or you could build up that he's so mad at Thanos that he just wants to Hulk out and rage at everyone. Instead, merging the two together takes away both elements of those characters. You take away the core elements of Bruce Banner, and you take away the core elements of the Hulk. And when you put them together, all you get is like this weird dabbing guy who doesn't do anything. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why they chose to do that. I mean, I actually don't. Like, because do kids really want to see their Hulk wearing glasses and, you know, having like the old, you know, white hair coming in? Do kids really want to see that? And do adults want to see that? Because I think a lot more people just like to see Hulk smashing and bashing stuff. And that's why I'm kind of curious how She-Hulk's going to be portrayed when she gets her show. And again, we'll do a video on that talking more about She-Hulk, because I have a lot of thoughts on She-Hulk, and we're going to cover those when the show comes out. But I really don't want She-Hulk to be like this, where she's like quirky and weird. I really want her to be presented as a strong woman who can fight the law on her own hands and has to overcome diversity and obstacles because of how she looks. That's what you should do with She-Hulk. Don't make her like a nerdy, geeky guy here who's dabbing and taking pictures of kids, because that's not interesting. And that's not what we should do with the Hulk. And another character here, this one's just a little different, and it is Star-Lord. Now, I think for the context of the Guardians movies, Star-Lord works pretty good. He's a very fascinating and interesting study of a man to see that, but my problem comes from, we're not going to let him grow anymore. Like, we've seen his arc in the first Guardians movie. He's trying to find his father, and he's trying to just find that place where his mother left him, and now he's lost in the world, and then he finds his family. That's the Guardians 1. Guardians 2, he finds his father. His father's an asshole. Now he has to figure out who his real family is, and of course it's the Guardians. Where do you go with that character next? Like, there's really nowhere else you can take that character. That's really interesting because you did the stuff with the mother already, you did the stuff with the father and Yondu. Like, where do you take him next? I know Guardians 3, I think there's talks that's going to be focused on Rocket a lot more, which I think is a really good idea because that's what you should do with Rocket. He should be the lead of your next Guardians movie because we saw him in Endgame being the only one left alive of the Guardians. And my other thing here with Quill is they kind of made him an idiot. And I really don't like that because I've been going through a lot of the older comics, right? I was going through like a couple of the old like Star-Lord comics I found, and he's a swashbuckling space pirate kind of guy, and that stuff's really cool. But I'm also like, we didn't do that with Chris Pratt. So I'm kind of just, maybe we'll make him a little more Flash Gordon-y and not so stupid sometimes. So OG here, I'm just reading your comment, man. He's like, I thought part 3 was going to show his mom as Eternity. Was that something they said? I mean, that's kind of interesting, actually. I kind of like that. But I think it also takes away what we saw in Guardians 2 when it's just like this random woman that like Ego found. I'm kind of curious to see Eternity. That's a really good idea, but I maybe think Eternity should be somebody different. I don't know. That's cool, though. If that was what you heard, I think that's pretty interesting. I'd like to see what that could be, actually. So that's really cool, dude. Thanks for sharing that, actually. That was really interesting. So we'll go away from Star-Lord for a bit here. We'll talk about another character change I'd like to see made in the MCU. And this one, I know it's never going to happen because they kind of struck gold with it, but Drax the Destroyer. Come on, guys. Like, we made him a joke who can't understand comedy or sarcasm, and all he does is make bad quips, and he's just really slow and dense sometimes. Where's the Destroyer in him? Where is this, like, dangerous, evil, maniacal voice that's just scary and threatening and just incredibly intense? The man rips out Thanos' heart at one point. Where are we going to see that in the MCU? You're kind of missing a character beat there too. It's kind of that thing with Hulk. Instead of making him this like scary, indestructible guy that's kind of over the top and like dramatic, you made him into this joking guy that eats chips so slowly you think he's invisible. And as funny as that is, I'd rather see something else from the character because like as every character is quipping. Every character in the MCU is quipping. If we did something different with Drax, like here he is, he's this intense, scary guy who could like rip your head off with his bare hands, and he's going to attack Thanos because he's so angry and mad. That's the Destroyer part of him. That's what we should see, the Destroyer part of Drax, because then every other character is making quips, making their little jokes. Peter Quill's doing it. You could, okay, if you want to keep Quill the same, that's fine. But make Drax a little more intense and scary and give him a cape. Give him a cape. That'd be really cool. And be less like work to design than what you did with like Dave Bautista already, because you just did like the pure green skin, gave him the weird headpiece and the cape. That'd be a lot cooler too, wouldn't it? I think it'd be a lot cooler. So let's do that. We should have done that. Do you guys like this video? Please let me know, because I'm just like, is this me just like rambling on about things I don't like in the MCU, or am I actually like making points clear or something? I'm very curious to see. Looking at my terribly made notes here. Next character. This one means a lot to me actually, because he's okay. He's the character I think that really got me into wanting to read comic books and got me into the idea that there is more to them than just what's on the page, and they can represent something and mean something. It's Hawkeye Clint Barton. This character is probably, I think I've related to him more than I have any other comic book character. Him and Iron Fist. I relate to them a lot, and I understand them a lot more than some others. I'm just very, very confused as to some of the choices they made with Clint in the MCU. First off, giving him a family is not a good idea. But I understand why you did it, because it's Jeremy Renner. And already when you got Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton, you are missing one of the key elements of Hawkeye. And that is this kind of down on his luck guy who can't really catch a break, because you got someone like Jeremy Renner. He's not going to let himself be portrayed as this incompetent buffoon, which right there I'm already upset with, just because that's who Clint is. He's trying really hard to do something. He's up there with the best of the Avengers, and all he has is a bow and arrow. So we should kind of just show like the fumbling buffoon sometimes with him and the arrogant, sarcastic guy there. We don't really get that with Jeremy Renner. So giving him a family, I see why they wanted to do that angle of it, make him like the elder statesman a little bit more. He's like a little more mature. He's got kids to look after. I completely get doing that because that's what Jeremy Renner would rather do than be like, oh man, I have to jump out this window with my dick out. You know, Jeremy Renner is not that guy. And I still don't think he's a good fit for Clint Barton. He never really has captured that. His energy just doesn't scream Clint Barton to me. You guys, I've done reviews on every issue of the newest Hawkeye run, Hawkeye Freefall. And that Clint, I think, works perfectly for the MCU. He is this kind of side character in a bigger universe, but everyone doesn't take him seriously. So he's trying to prove himself all the time, but no one's really giving him the chance to do it. And he's always kind of falling back into the same old routine where he can't escape from. That's a story I think would work really good for the MCU. And I just don't like giving him kids. That's not what we should do. Making Ronin this terrible killer who's going around injuring everybody and attacking the Yakuza. That's not what you should do with Ronin. When Clint is Ronin, it's because he doesn't want to be Hawkeye anymore. Okay? So I think, was Kate Bishop Hawkeye at that point? Because he came back in New Avengers. Was Kate Bishop Hawkeye? I can't remember. I know there's a story where it's like, yeah, you can be Hawkeye. I don't care. You don't have to be Hawkeye woman or anything. You're just straight up Hawkeye. That's really cool. Kate Bishop's a great character too, by the way. So just having him be Ronin as this like merciless killer, it takes a lot away from who Clint really is, don't you think? Like he just loses something inside of himself there. And what's up, man? Anthony Manzano. I got the screen pretty far away, so I can't read it. Yeah, what's up, man? We're talking about Clint Barton being weird in the MCU. I don't think he's a good Hawkeye. Jeremy Renner didn't really portray that character right. So we'll move past it, all that stuff. I'm very curious to see what they are going to do with the Hawkeye TV show for a couple of reasons. Because we got huge, everyone's thinking it's going to be like the Fraction and Aja run, which I'm like, that's really cool. But that run only works because Clint doesn't have a wife and children. So how are they going to present that? I'm very intrigued by what that's going to be. Could be good. And I'm still surprised, like, what they're doing with Kate Bishop, because I think it's going to be Haley Steinfeld, so we'll see. What's up, Anthony? Who would you have rather choose to play Clint Barton in the MCU if you had the choice? All right, I've actually thought about this before. And it's weird because then we'd have to like recast somebody else too, but if we were in the universe where John Krasinski played Captain America, I think Chris Evans would have crushed playing Clint Barton. Because you just see his energy when he was in The Losers, when he was in playing as Human Torch. That energy would have been really cool to see. Really cool to see as Clint Barton in the MCU, especially if Krasinski was Captain America, because those two could play off each other really well. So yeah, that's who I'd pick. I think Jensen Ackles was rumored about it too for a bit. He would be a very interesting choice too. I don't think they would have went the kid route if Jensen Ackles was on board, so that's kind of cool. New Rockstars made the video about Star-Lord's mom possibly being Eternity in Guardians 3. Okay. I see that angle happening, but then you go back to Guardians Volume 2, right? And I think that kind of takes away the idea that Peter's mom was just some woman of Earth, and just having that I don't really like. So it maybe if Eternity was maybe connected to Peter, like maybe it's Ego's mom, so it's Peter's grandmother, that could be kind of cool. I'd like that a little more, because I think the angle of just having Peter's mother be a woman of Earth who was just picked randomly just really amplifies how much of an asshole Ego really was. Do you think Kevin Feige chose Jeremy Renner to play Clint Barton because he would have Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow? Interesting. But I'll throw this one at you. Chris Evans and ScarJo have some great chemistry too. So imagine that chemistry as a Hawkeye and Black Widow. That could have been really cool. Just saying. I think you could get Jeremy Renner in a different role in the MCU. I think there's a spot for him. I'm not exactly sure what that would be at the top of my head. He could be a really cool Bullseye. Don't you guys think? I think he could be a really cool Bullseye. That would be really cool to see. So I do got one more character here we could talk about for changes I'd like to see made to the MCU. This one's a little light just because they haven't really done a lot with this character at the moment, but it's Janet Van Dyne. If you guys have watched any of my videos, like my first GeekWave episode 2, the first episode we did of GeekWave, which was the first live stream I ever did, I have talked about how much I love Janet Van Dyne, how she's my favorite of the original Avengers, how she deserves a place at the top. I just did a video where I said she should lead a team of Avengers in a new Avengers book. She should definitely lead a team. This Janet Van Dyne, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. I adore Michelle Pfeiffer. Absolutely 100% adore her. She's on my list of people you should simp to. Like, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. But this Janet just misses a lot of the beats that I think Janet should have. She's not the fashionista, high celebrity profile character that I think is very needed. And I understand making her old to go with the Hank Pym stuff, but I think we're missing the key element of like the quirky, bubbly fun that we're not really getting from Hope Van Dyne. And I still like Hope. I still really like Hope. Evangeline Lilly, another person I really adore. I just kind of think Janet deserves a bigger and better place in our like viewing experiences when it comes to all this stuff. So I want to see her in these different lights. And I think having her be the older figure takes away some stuff with her. What do we got here, man? I think it would have been cool to have another female character as part of the Avengers to begin with. Maybe have Kate Bishop. Ooh, that's Kate Bishop would be interesting. I don't know. I think like you can't do Kate Bishop until you establish the Young Avengers, because she should be one of the like figures in the Young Avengers that's like really prominent and important. Jennifer Lawrence is an interesting choice. I don't think she would ever do another superhero movie because of the Mystique stuff, but that's a really interesting choice. Haley Steinfeld, I still think, is the best choice to play Kate Bishop. I don't know. I think if you really wanted to do it, and I was actually going to talk about this in another video, but let's talk about it here for a bit before I go off. I'll go for maybe 10 more minutes here. Let's talk. I think if you really wanted to like get on the same level as DC Comics in terms of establishing a Trinity, it's not going to be Captain America, Iron Man, or Thor. That's not your Trinity. That should never be your Trinity. Your Trinity should be Spider-Man, Wolverine, and She-Hulk. She-Hulk should be your Wonder Woman figure. So if you wanted to go back to like the earlier Avengers movies, don't do Bruce Banner. Do Jennifer Walters. You want another female character in there aside Black Widow? I think you could do Jennifer Walters. There's just something about that that's different than what we've seen before, because we've already had the Hulk movie. We had the Hulk TV series. So we could do something different there. I think that could be really cool, really interesting stuff. The reason I'm saying Jennifer Lawrence, she had experience of shooting bow and arrows from Hunger Games. Yeah, I know. But just look at her. Does she really give off like that Kate Bishop energy? Maybe Elsa Bloodstone. I could see Elsa Bloodstone, but I'm not sure if I'd want her as Kate Bishop. But that's a good choice. It's a very interesting choice, and I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it. But like you said, like your earlier comment there, another like female Avenger to start off with, I think it should have been She-Hulk, and we could have just done without the Bruce Banner stuff. And then maybe later on down the line in the MCU, we bring in the bigger stuff with Bruce Banner. That could have been really cool to see. Because as it stands, like I said too earlier, I don't know if some of you missed this or not, but earlier I was like, that's not what I want from Hulk. I'd rather see more stuff in terms of Immortal Hulk and a little deeper and steeped in this mythos of the character. You could easily put on this list too for characters I'd like to see changed. The Abomination, I'd like to see that character change. And Emil Blonsky, I think you could easily do something different with those characters that they really haven't done. And that could be really cool. And also, I don't know if I'd put him on my list as a character to change, but maybe get something else happening with General Ross. I do feel like we are setting up to do a Thunderbolts series or a Thunderbolts movie. But I feel like you could do something else there with that character. Maybe more in relationship to the Hulk, and maybe not focus him on the stuff with Black Widow like he's going to be in that movie. I don't know. That's just a thing I'm just thinking about now. So I do want to point out again, I do not hate the MCU. I don't. I like a lot of the stuff in it. I think it does a great job with doing some cool things with characters. Like, they've done wonders to Wanda and Vision and Tony Stark, making these characters likable when they weren't really likable before. Because, look, 2008, Tony doesn't exist in, like, the mainstream yet, right? Did Civil War come out? I think Civil War might have come out. So you have this character that not a lot of people are liking at the time, who's still a B-list character, and now we're doing something big with him in a movie, and they made it work, which is really cool. And even Wanda, too. I think Wanda's another one they got right really good. And I think that could have been a really cool thing. Like, just what they did with Wanda, it worked really well because she wasn't doing any of, like, the House of M stuff or just, like, no more mutants. She just worked with what she was. I'd love to see her be connected to the mutants, but Krakoa is making everything weird. I honestly would have preferred having Tony Stark being in his mid-30s. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'd agree, but who else could play Tony? I mean, who else could play him but Robert Downey Jr.? I think that guy, he did perfect. Like, he was Tony Stark. His arc as a human being in the real world imitated that of Tony Stark in the comic books. So I think you can't get better casting than that. Like, he literally looks the part perfectly, and it was really good. So I think we're going to end things talking about a couple of recommendations. And I mean, yeah, we always end with some recommendations, so we'll jump to it. So first off, let's talk about Ed Brisson's Ghost Rider, which is probably one of the best books happening at Marvel right now, but it was canceled and it really sucks. I do know that the numbers were there. The numbers were there to keep that book going, but they canceled it for no reason. And I think it could be a digital exclusive thing, so you could check that out for a digital exclusive there. Well, okay, what did your comment here say there, Anthony? I prefer Tony Stark being in his late 20s, early inherit Stark. Yeah, okay, I agree with you. I could see that, but RDJ, man, he did really cool. Like, he did great. So yeah, Ed Brisson's Ghost Rider. It's 7 issues. It's well worth the read. I think everyone's gonna like it and have a great time reading it. Like, it was really fun, really entertaining stuff for me. And if we got a new Suicide Squad game coming out, check out Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, because it's been so long since I think that title has had a book that's so inventive and revolutionary in the terms of the characters itself. You never know what's going to happen. They kill off a lot of the main characters early on, and they do a lot of interesting stuff there. They made Ted Kord a very fascinating character for the first time in a long time, so it's definitely kind of cool. Yeah, he was kind of in his 30s in 2008 there. Definitely agree. And of course, some MCU recommendations. If you guys just want to throw something on Disney Plus, Avengers: Age of Ultron, you get the best Quicksilver on screen. Evan Peters is not a good Quicksilver. Aaron Taylor Johnson, is that the guy? He married the girl that did the third 50 Shades of Grey movie. Yes, Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's a great Quicksilver. He's a great Pietro. So watch Age of Ultron for that. And check out Thor #1, because I think it's well worth the watch and well worth the investment. It's just really cool stuff. So you guys should check that out and enjoy it. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I really appreciate it. And as always, you guys can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter. Coming, I want to say, we'll say Wednesday or Thursday, I will be back live streaming, and we're going to be talking about Doom Patrol and Stargirl. So you guys can check that out and have just a blast talking about that stuff with me, because that's some really great stuff, guys. I really enjoy it. What comments do you recommend for Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes? I haven't read anything with Robbie Reyes. I think really cool character, really interesting stuff. Diego Luna. No, who was it? Oh, it wasn't Diego Luna. Oh, Gabriel Luna? Was that the guy who played him on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? He's good. So he did good there. He's in Aaron's Avengers run. If you like that, you'll like it, I guess. I hate Aaron's Avengers run, but it's got Robbie, so if you want to read Robbie in there, you could do it. I just haven't read any of his solo stuff. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I'll be back live streaming, so check me out there, and thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. I appreciate it a lot. So later, guys, and thank you.